The glass door shattered into fragments as a frantic knock resounded, startling everyone inside the dimly lit lobby. Jacob, now the reluctant caretaker of the once luxurious high-view hotel, spun around, his pulse spiking. The echo of desperation filled the room before he could even respond. "Please," a young woman's voice cracked through the night. "Let me in, I need shelter." He hesitated, eyes darting to the shadowy outline of the figure outside. His gut told him to turn her away. This place, his family's pride for decades, had turned into a little more than a forgotten relic. "No one came here anymore, not since the accidents, the lawsuits, the failures." But her voice cut through his inner turmoil, sharp and raw against his better judgment. Jacob stepped forward and unlatched the door. A cold gust rushed in with the girl. She was pale, trembling under a threadbare jacket, her hands clutching a tattered backpack, her eyes wide and full of a haunted desperation locked onto his. "I just need a place," she whispered, her breath clouding in the air. "Just for a night." Jacob swallowed, unsure whether it was pity, caution, or his own aching loneliness compelling him. "The hotel's closed," he said firmly, hoping to mask his wavering resolve. "There's nothing here for you." Her shoulders sagged, but she didn't back away. "I don't care, I'll sleep in the lobby if I have to." "Please." His jaw tightened, but he stepped aside, letting her in. "You can stay, but no promises. It'll be comfortable." Jacob flicked the dim lobby lights back on, illuminating the once grand reception area. Dust hung in the air like a ghostly haze, and the faint smell of mildew lingered. The young woman stood awkwardly by the entrance, her eyes scanning the peeling wallpaper and tarnished brass fix. "Not exactly five-star accommodations," Jacob muttered, folding his arms. "It's perfect," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but there was something in her tone that sounded genuine. "Perfect?" Jacob raised an eyebrow. "You've got low standards." She glanced at him, lips curving into the faintest smile. "I've stayed in worse places." For a moment Jacob was taken aback. There was something unnervingly calm about her, as though she had been through more than her age would suggest. He shook it off, stepping behind the reception desk. "I've still got water and power running," he said, pulling a key from the rack. "Room 208 is clean, beds decent, no one slept there in a while." Though she stepped closer, hesitating. "I can't pay much." "Don't worry about it," he interrupted, sliding the key toward her. "Consider a charity, just keep to yourself." "All right." Her face softened with gratitude, but she didn't say more. Gripping the key, she disappeared up the staircase, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Jacob watched her go, wondering what kind of trouble she was running from. The logical part of him screamed that this was a mistake, that she could beat anyone dangerous even, but another part of him, the part that still felt tethered to the hotel's once bustling past, found solace in her presence. The following morning Jacob was startled awake by the sound of movement. He had fallen asleep on the lobby couch, a whiskey glass still balanced precariously in his hand. Groaning, he sat up, expecting the worst. The sound wasn't coming from outside, it was from inside the hotel. He crept toward the noise, weary but curious, and stopped short when he saw her. The girl was crouched near the reception desk, scrubbing the floor with a wet rag. A bucket of soapy water sat beside her. Her hair was tied back and she worked with quiet determination, her lips pressed into a firm line. "What the hell are you doing?" Jacob asked, his voice cutting through the stillness. She jumped, startled, and then relaxed when she saw him. "It was filthy," she said, simply gesturing at the floor. "Figured I'd help clean up." "Cleaning?" Jacob repeated, incredulous. "This place is a lost cause. It's not worth the effort." "It's worth something," she replied, her gaze meeting his. There was steel in her voice now, a challenge he hadn't expected. "Places like this, they don't deserve to be forgotten." Jacob didn't know how to respond. For years he'd avoided facing the hotel's decline, treating it like a wound too painful to tend to. Yet here was this stranger scrubbing away like it still mattered. "Suit yourself," he muttered, retreating back to his desk. But as the day went on he found himself drawn to her quiet resilience. She cleaned, relentlessly, wiping down windows, rearranging furniture, even polishing the brass handles on the front doors. By evening the lobby looked almost alive. Jacob leaned against the counter, watching her as she finished sweeping the floors. "You're not just passing through, are you?" he asked, breaking the silence. She paused, glancing up at him. "What makes you say that people who pass through don't care enough to clean?" Her eyes flickered with something he couldn't quite read. She set the broom down, brushing her hands on her jeans. "I needed a place to feel useful again," she admitted. "Is that so bad?" Jacob hesitated. "No, just unusual." A faint smile crossed her lips. "Maybe you should try it sometime. You might like how it feels." He didn't respond, but her words stayed with him. That night as he sat alone in the dimly lit lobby, he caught himself imagining what the hotel used to be. Bustling guests, clinking glasses in the dining room, laughter echoing through the halls, and for the first time in years he didn't feel entirely alone. The days turned into a pattern. The girl whose name he finally learned was Elise continued her self-imposed mission to restore the hotel room by room. Jacob found himself joining in, albeit reluctantly at first. first together they scrubbed away years of grime patch peeling wallpaper and even managed to repair some of the broken furniture. What brought you here, Elise? Jacob asked one afternoon as they repainted the lobby walls. She hesitated, her brush hovering mid-stroke. A lot of bad decisions, she said quietly, in a need to start over. He didn't press her for more, sensing the weight behind her words. By the end of the week the transformation was undeniable. The High View Hotel, once a forgotten relic, began to look like a place with purpose again. Elise had even taken to placing fresh flowers in the rooms, a small but thoughtful touch that made the place feel alive. When the first unexpected guest arrived, a weary traveler passing through town, Jacob nearly turned them away, but Elise intervened, her confidence catching him off guard. Stay, she said, her smile warm and genuine. We've got a room ready for you. The traveler agreed, and soon word began to spread. A week later, Jacob found himself staring at the bookings ledger, his hands trembling slightly. 3 names, 3 actual paying guests were staying at the High View Hotel. The impossibility of it struck him like a wave, leaving him speechless. How, he muttered to himself. Elise, dusting off an antique clock by the reception desk, glanced over at him with a smirk. You're welcome. He shook his head, unable to suppress a small smile. Don't get cocky, this could just be a fluke. Maybe, she said, setting the clock down carefully, or maybe this place is finally waking up. Jacob leaned back against the desk, watching her. She had a way of speaking about the hotel as if it were alive, as if the faded walls and creaky floors held a soul of their own. He hadn't believed her at first, but now he wasn't so sure. The guests trickled in slowly at first, mostly travelers who had stumbled across the hotel while looking for something affordable and charming. Ellie worked tirelessly to make each stay memorable, her innate warmth and attention to detail shining through in everything she did. One evening, after a particularly busy day, Jacob found her sitting in the dining room, a notebook open in front of her. What's that? He asked, sliding into the seat across from her. She held it up, revealing sketches and handwritten notes, ideas for the hotel. Jacob arched an eyebrow, leaning forward to inspect the pages. They were filled with diagrams for rearranging furniture, suggestions for themed weekends, and even recipes for homemade pastries to serve at breakfast. You've been thinking about this a lot, he said, impressed despite himself. Elise shrugged, a faint blush creeping up her neck. This place feels special, like it could really be something again. I just want to help. For the first time in years, Jacob felt a flicker of hope. All right, he said slowly, let's try it your way, with Elise's ideas leading the charge. The hotel began to thrive. They worked late into the nights, often collapsing into laughter over burnt attempts at baking or mishaps while moving heavy furniture. Despite the hard work, Jacob felt more alive than he had in years. But as the bookings increased and the hotel regained its charm, the shadows of their past began to creep back in. One night, as they were locking up, Jacob found Elise sitting on the edge of the fountain in the garden. Her usual energy was gone, replaced by a quiet melancholy. You okay? He asked, sitting beside her. She didn't answer right away, her eyes fixed on the rippling water. Do you ever feel like you're running from something? Jacob stiffened. Sometimes, Elise sighed, tucking her hair behind her ear. I wasn't completely honest with you when I came here. I didn't just stumble across this place. I was looking for somewhere to disappear. Jacob stayed quiet, sensing the weight of what she was about to say. I left a bad situation, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Someone I trusted hurt me, took everything from me. Coming here was my way of escaping, of trying to rebuild myself. Jacob's jaw tightened, anger bubbling beneath the surface. If they hurt you, they don't deserve to have any hold over you. Now her eyes met his, glistening with unshed tears. It's not that simple. The past doesn't just let go. No, he agreed, but you've built something here, Elise, something they can't touch. Her lips quirked into a faint smile. You think so? I know so, he said firmly. For the first time since she arrived, Elise leaned her head on his shoulder and they sat together in silence, the cool night air wrapping around them like a protective shroud. As the weeks went on, the High View Hotel became a beacon in the small town. Guests spoke of its cozy charm, the care put into every detail, and the warmth of its owners. Jacob and Elise became an inseparable team, their connection deepening with each shared victory and quiet moment. But peace is a way of drawing the storms. It started with a phone call. Jacob was fixing a broken railing on the front porch when Elise came out, her face pale and her hands trembling. Who was it? Jacob asked, setting his tools aside. She swallowed hard, her voice shaky. Him. He knows where I am. Jacob's blood ran cold. What did he say? He wants to come here, she whispered. To talk? The very idea of someone threatening the sanctuary they built together made Jacob's hands clench into fists. He's not setting foot in this hotel, not while I'm here. Elise shook her head. You don't know him, Jacob. He won't stop. Then we'll make him stop. The days that follow were tense, every sound and shadow putting them on edge. Ellie tried to keep busy, pouring her energy into the hotel, but Jacob could see the fear gnawing at her. When the man finally showed up, it was late at night. The headlights of his car pierced the darkness as it rolled up the gravel drive, stopping just short of the hotel's entrance. Jacob stepped out onto the porch, his heart pounding as a tall, broad-shouldered figure emerged from The car. The man's face was sharp and cruel, his eyes cold as they fixed on Jacob. Where's Elise? He demanded, his voice low and menacing. Jacob didn't flinch. She doesn't want to see you. The man took a step forward, his jaw tightening. That's not your call to make. Actually it is, Jacob said, standing his ground. You're trespassing. Leave now or I'll call the cops. The man's lip curled into a sneer. You think you can protect her? You don't know who you're dealing with. Try me. Jacob shot back, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Inside, Elise watched from the window, her breath hitching as the confrontation unfolded. She wanted to run, to hide, but something about Jacob's unwavering stance rooted her in place. For the first time in a long time she felt safe. Jacob stood firm, his fists clenched as the man approached, his shadow long under the dim porch light. The tension was palpable, each step forward filling the air with a suffocating weight. Jacob's heart pounded, but he refused to back down. This was Elise's sanctuary now, and no one, especially not this predator, was going to take that away. I'm giving you one last chance, Jacob growled, his voice low but steady. Get in your car, leave or you'll regret it. The man smirked, a smugness that spoke of years of manipulation. You think she's yours to protect? You don't know the first thing about her. I do. She belongs with me. From behind the window, Elise's hands trembled as she watched the exchange. Jacob's words gave her courage, but the sight of her past standing just feet away sent her spiraling. The walls she'd carefully rebuilt seemed to crumble, exposing the wounds she thought she had buried. No, she whispered to herself, gripping the windowsill. Not this time. The man took another step, towering over Jacob now, his expression darkening. Move, he ordered. Jacob didn't budge. No, the tension exploded. The man lunged forward, shoving Jacob hard against the railing. Wood creaked and splintered under the force, but Jacob didn't let up. Fueled by anger and the need to protect, he swung back, landing a punch square across the man's jaw. The two grappled in the dim light, their struggle violent and chaotic. The man was bigger, stronger, but Jacob had resolve on his side. Suddenly a voice cut through the chaos. Stop! Both men froze, panting, and turned to see Elise standing on the porch steps, her face pale but her eyes blazing with determination. This ends now, she said firmly, her voice steady despite the fear threatening to claw its way out. The man sneered, Elise, don't be stupid. You think you can just walk away from me? I already have, she said, stepping closer. You don't control me anymore. You don't scare me, and you're not welcome here. Her words hung in the air, their finality striking like thunder. The man's bravado wavered. He glanced between Elise and Jacob, weighing his options. For the first time he saw that he wasn't in control. You'll regret this, he spat, but his voice lacked conviction. He turned storming back to his car. Gravel crunched under his feet as he climbed in, slamming the door behind him. Jacob and Elise stood in silence, their breaths heavy as the car peeled out of the driveway, its tail lights disappearing into the darkness inside the hotel. Jacob collapsed onto one of the lobby chairs, rubbing his sore shoulder. Elise followed, sitting across from him. For a moment neither spoke, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on them. You didn't have to do that, Elise said finally, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. Jacob looked at her, his expression serious. Yes, I did. You deserve better than to keep running, and I'm not about to let someone like him take this place away from you. She smiled faintly, tears pooling in her eyes. Thank you. They sat in silence for a while, the hotel quiet around them. Despite everything, a sense of peace began to settle. The days that followed were transformative. Elise, no longer burdened by the fear of her past, threw herself into the hotel with renewed purpose. Jacob worked alongside her, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Word about the High View Hotel continued to spread. Guests praised its unique charm, and Elise's warmth left a lasting impression on everyone who walked through the doors. Jacob, once reluctant to even step into the building, found himself thriving in the role of caretaker and partner. One afternoon, as they prepared for another bus-busy weekend, Elise stopped Jacob in the hallway. I've been thinking, she said, her voice hesitant but hopeful. Dangerous? Jacob teased, though his smile was genuine. She rolled her eyes. I'm serious. I think I want to stay here for good. Jacob blinked, surprised. You mean that? She nodded. This place saved me, and so did you. I want to keep building this together. For a moment Jacob was speechless, then he grinned. I can't think of anyone I'd rather do this with. Months passed and the High View Hotel became a beacon of hope, not just for travelers but for the entire town. Its story, a tale of redemption and resilience, drew attention from local media and even a few travel blogs. Booking surged, and Jacob and Elise worked tirelessly to maintain the personal touch that had made the hotel so special. One evening, after the last guest had retired to the room, Jacob found Elise sitting on the garden bench looking out at the stars. He joined her, the night air crisp and cool. You've been quiet, he said, nudging her shoulder gently. She smiled, leaning against him. Just thinking about how far we've come. When I first got here I didn't think I'd stay more than a night, and now this is home. Jacob finished for her. She looked up up at him, her eyes soft. Yeah, it is. For a moment they sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the night surrounding them. Elise, Jacob said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. You've changed my life. This place, it wasn't alive until you walked in. I wasn't alive until you walked in. Her cheeks flushed and she reached for his hand. I think we save each other. Jacob smiled, his heart full. The High View Hotel thrived not just as a business but as a testament to the power of second chances. Jacob and Relays, bound by their shared journey, found not only purpose but a love that made every challenge worth it. And as the stars shone brightly above the hotel that night, it was clear that the story of the High View wasn't one of endings, it was just the beginning.